Okay, we're looking at what was Article X, which is a Roman numeral for 10 of the League of Nations Covenant. So we're going to use paragraph 28. At the heart of the covenant was Article 10. The quote, the members of the League undertake to respect and preserve us as against external aggression. And paragraph 30, on the day before Wilson returned to Paris. So again, you're going to do a 25-word summary answering the question, what was Article 10 of the League of Nations Covenant? If you follow along, it says, at the heart of the covenant was Article 10, which spelled out the new collective security arrangements. Many felt that Article 10 would obligate the United States to intervene overseas. Article 10 stipulated that all states would respect the territorial integrity of the borders drawn, the Versailles, and that the League of Nations would act to maintain them against aggression. So, pretty much, you wouldn't step into somebody else's space and try to take over their land. And the League of Nations would be the ones who would support that and would back it to stop countries from doing that. So the idea of imperialism is now being limited. It says the League would safeguard these new post-war borders through economic sanctions as well as through the use of military force. Wilson saw this approach as a moral and responsible move away from the traditional power politics that had led to the catastrophic destruction of the Great War. It says the members of the League undertake to respect and preserve as against external aggression the territorial integrity and existing political independence of all members of the League. In case of any such aggression or in case of any threat or danger of such aggression, the Council shall advise upon the means by which the obligation shall be fulfilled. On this day, before Wilson returned to Paris, Senator Lodge circulated a document to his colleagues stating that he rejected the draft covenant. Remember, Senator Lodge has been against Wilson's plan since the very beginning of things, and he's now in the position where he has power and control over the Senate as far as foreign affairs. He asked that the peace conference set aside the question of the League of Nations until the completion of a peace agreement with Germany. 39 senators signed the document indicating their agreement with Lodge's statement. This was more than enough signatures to deny Wilson the two-thirds majority needed to ratify the treaty, which the end result of that is, as Wilson came back and presented the League of Nations to the United States, he was not going to have the support of the Senate to actually become a part of the League of Nations, which means that the United States, although we presented this option, and it's the very reason that Germany decided to surrender and trust the 14 points, we were not going to be able to be a part of it and actually support it. What did Wilson find when he returned to Paris? We're going to use paragraph 31. Wilson would also find opposition back in Europe. And that is the only one. You're doing a 25-word summary, which is going to respond to your question and answer, what did Wilson find when he returned to Paris? It says, Wilson also found opposition back in Europe. Wilson returned to Paris after the break to find that the Canadian Prime Minister, Borden, also had concerns about Article 10. We haven't talked a lot about Canada, but remember, Canada is a territory of France, and they support the Allies and France through all of this. So their perspective, which was to keep their borders safe. The Prime Minister argued that Article 10 would violate a state's sovereignty and national aspirations, and that it could draw a country into distant conflicts. Which means if another country, it wasn't you per se, but another country was having an issue with somebody, the League of Nations could back them, which means, although it's not your war, that you could have to go and support them. It says, in spite of the opposition at home and abroad, Wilson preserved Article 10, although he did make some changes to the covenant to appease his political opponents at home. Among these changes was an amendment that ensured that the Treaty of Versailles and the League of Nations Covenant would not render the Monroe Doctrine invalid. Again, the Monroe Doctrine is something that took place prior to and during the Spanish-American War, which would keep the European countries out of the Americas, so out of North America and out of South America territories.